Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and welcome to our Planning a DEEM event webinar. A bit of housekeeping before we get fully started is we are recording this webinar and it will be available in all likelihood next week on the DEEM website, which is driveelectricearthmonth.org. We will be taking questions throughout the webinar and we'll either answer those in real time as we go or ensure that we come back to them at the end. I will say if there's a question that we do not know the answer to, we encourage you to submit it to the Drive Electric Earth Month support email address, which is support@driveelectricearthmonth.org. If you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box at any time. We're going to try to filter questions over to there so they don't get buried in any other conversations happening in the chat, and that we can make sure we see everything for everyone. The chat is active, and please feel free to share anything in there. Again, welcome everybody. Thank you for sharing where you're joining us from, what brought you here, and what you're hoping to learn. And so, yeah, we can go ahead and get it started. Thank you again for our introductory webinar on planning a DEEM event. Today, we'll walk you through basic strategies and ideas to help you organize and facilitate your event effectively. Drive Electric Earth Month and the Plug in America campaigns are presented by, we have some partners all across the United States. We have, of course, Plug in America, the Electric Vehicle Association, EV Hybrid Noir, which Carlos is joining us today from, the Sierra Club, and Drive Electric USA, which I am here on behalf of. And partners help our campaign community grow and are also a huge support to individual events. And we are grateful for all of the national campaign sponsors. I am Jenny Kidd. I'm a senior project manager at the East Tennessee Clean Fuels Coalition in Knoxville, Tennessee. I am also the co-program manager for the Drive Electric USA program. I see a few people here that are connected through that. Welcome, Kaylee. Thank you for joining today. I have been with the coalition since about midway through 2022, and I am looking forward to just continuing being able to do some meaningful work in the alt fuel space. And I will pass it over to my co-host Carlos to do another
Awesome. Thank
introduction.
you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny. So, hi, everyone. I'm Carlos Gilbao, and I'm on the EV Hybrid Wars programs team. I've been with the organization for 3 years now, just did my third anniversary a couple days ago. And yeah, I see a lot of the attendees are from EV Hybrid Noir, so thank you for joining as well. And I'll pass it back to you, Jenny.
Thank you very much. And as another reminder, today's webinar is meant as an introduction to event planning. I will be honest, if you're a seasoned DEEM or NDO organizer, the information here is maybe going to be a little bit boring for you, but we're happy to have you stay if you're looking for just a refresher or some new ideas for whatever you're going to be doing at your events this year. And here is a little bit of what we will review today. So National Drive Electric Earth Month, or DEEM as we call it, is an international campaign of in-person and online events. The campaign is supported by 200 plus events that take place across the country. Each event is organized by volunteer EV drivers and various EV advocates who receive national support from the campaign partners, which again, Plug in America, the Electric Vehicle Association, Sierra Club, EV Hybrid Noir, and Drive Electric USA.
Yep. And then I know you guys are, some of you might be very new with Doom or might be very new with in terms of planning an event. So here are a few frequently asked questions that we usually get from a lot of people. First is, how do I register an event? To be a part of the DEEM campaign, your event obviously has to be signed up to the DEEM website. It's the driveelectricearthmonth.org. So from the DEEM homepage, you will be able to see it usually in the second tab, which is Get Involved. So once you click that, you'll be able to see different types of ways of getting involved with DEEM. And the third option would be organize an event. So you just have to click that and follow the instructions. Once you click that, you'll be able to fill out the form. We usually just ask for basic information, just as the name, email, and obviously the location, just to make sure that you don't have any conflicting events on the same location. And then after that, you just have to scroll down and then click the register to organize an event, and you'll be able to register your event under DEEM campaign. And then second one is what support will you receive? So after you register your event on the DEEM homepage, you'll be able to receive some specific support materials or support from the DEEM team. So what are those? First is EV educational materials. Obviously, we have a bunch of printed materials that we could share with you all, and then you could also distribute it on your event. We also have a DEEM banner that you can use if you're doing an in-person event. Also, a lot of event planning resources that we have that we share with you all. It's templates, best practices as well in terms of how to plan an event or how to manage an event. We will also have partner support from the DEEM team and a lot more supports and resources and tools as well that we could share. And and while your event can be virtual or in person, I know if you're planning of doing an EV ride and drive, an EV showcase, an EV rally or parade, and so on, if you are in an in-person and showcasing vehicles, those vehicles should be at least a plug-in electric vehicles, and all electric and a plug-in hybrids are welcome for those events. And obviously, for DEEM campaign, we obviously support multimodal transportation electrification, so we also welcome e-bikes, e-scooters, e-buses, or even e-boats are also very welcome. And if we go to the next slide, so yeah, so those I saw a question already about insurance. So is the event insurance required? It depends. Often not, it's not required, but always good to have specifically, especially if you're doing a ride and drive. Obviously, an insurance is very important. And if you need any support on that one, like what Jenny said on the intro, please email us at support@driveelectricearthmonth.org. And the next is who can sponsor the event? Any automakers, charging companies, utilities, or other organizations are welcome to sponsor your event. Also, obviously, national sponsors should also still be recognized. And then again, what if you need any support, if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to us at support@driveelectricearthmonth.org.
I
And
threw
then
that
pass it
one
on
in
to.
yeah, thanks, Carlos. Sorry about that. I interrupted. I also threw that email address in the chat if anybody needs to grab it while we move through the webinar. But now we're going to shift in some event planning basics. We'll review some of the who, what, when, where, and whys that you may want to keep in mind when you plan. There are three main groups of people that you'll be working with and for as you plan an event. The first one is your event planning team, and that is the people who are in this with you start to finish. The second is your volunteer team and your event supporters. These are local EV enthusiasts, who will bring their vehicles to your event, and local organizations and businesses that may want to table at or sponsor your event. This group could also include event vendors, such as food trucks, who want to sell or otherwise do business on site at your event. And the third is your event attendees, and those are the people who come to your event to learn, engage, and have fun. As you can see from this slide, being mindful to communicate effectively with all three groups is important. Your team, your volunteers and supporters, and your attendees are all going to need to know different things and understand how best they can show up to help at and or participate in the event. So with your planning team, you'll want to have a way to communicate what needs to be done, who is doing it, if and when it is done, and the outcomes. Make sure everyone is on the same page and delegate tasks clearly. Creating some sort of event documentation is really important here as well. That could be a spreadsheet, a Word document, thoughtful email threads, whatever your best communication method is. We also have an example of a very basic event planning template that you can access from the DEEM event planning guide. With your volunteer and support team, again, detailed communication to this group should explain what volunteers need to do. When should they arrive for the event? Do they need to check in with anyone? And if so, with who? Where do they need to go/park their vehicle? What will you provide for them? Signs for vehicles, snacks, t-shirts. Do you have any tips to help them engage with event guests? Similarly, if your event volunteers are helping you with tasks like rider driver registration, checking IDs, or set up teardown, make sure they know what that process or procedure is. If you're working with local organizations, sponsors, or vendors, make sure they have the same kind of information about when to arrive and how to set up. Communicate with them about what they can expect from the event. Is there usually a rush of people at a particular time? Will you check in with them throughout the event? And remember that these are the people that make your event happen on the day that it's happening. So express your gratitude for their involvement and support. Again, people like to be appreciated. So these volunteers are the bread and butter of your event, and the likelihood that they come back to help in the future could depend on how your first event goes with them. And with your event attendees, help them understand what will be offered, give tips for how they can engage, help them feel prepared and comfortable in terms of asking questions, talking to people, interacting with vehicles, what they need to bring. For example, if they're interested in driving a vehicle. During the event, make them feel welcome. Sometimes a simple hello and welcome, and I'm really glad you came can go a long way for some people. Also consider sending reminder emails leading into the event and have a plan to follow up after the event. What options do they have to engage further or stay connected? Is it social media? Is it a group web page, next events, etc.?
And yep, and after identifying who, we will go to the what will happen at your event. Obviously, a big part of the planning process is determining what will happen at your event and also obviously making it happen. With your event, you also need to identify if your event include a ride and drive, an EV showcase, an educational booth, a panel discussion, a presentation, or even a webinar like this. So there's a lot of endless options that you can do at your event. But obviously, each event requires different requirements or considerations. Obviously, your needs and planning for a ride and drive event will be, include different things than if you're planning a panel discussion or a webinar. And what will and can happen at your event also may depend on what location you have secure. So if you go to the next slide, where will your event happen? I call this like location and event activities are a bit of like which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Like you can determine your activities and then secure your location, or vice versa. You can you can identify what activities you want to do and then secure your location. But obviously, there's a lot of ways that you can consider in terms of locating your event location. One obviously is appropriate space for activities that will happen. Again, it depends on what type of events you're doing. Um, that should also affect your what type of location are you looking at. So your location may have quirks to consider or advantages to capitalize on when it comes to the anticipated flow of people through the space. For example, if an attendee parking options mean people would mostly approach from a certain direction, you can think about how to utilize that flow of guest traffic or certain, for example, physical structures or barriers in the space may help highlight where aspects of your setup might need to occur. Or, for example, if you need directional signs to help people orient and explore the event space, because me as as an attendee, for example, if I see directional signs or a signs or flyer of the event that gives, I guess, comfort for me that I'm at the right place, I'm at the right location. So that's also very important. And then your event location might also have the benefit of attracting people passing by. For example, are there any nearby businesses that people may be, patronizing, or a farmer's market, for example, that attracts a large audience? Or if you're thinking of doing an event in an event where people are already attending and passing by, that could also attract a heavy foot traffic. That can be a great way to market your event the day it is happening, and also may mean that you need to prepare with signs like event signs, directional signs, or even event volunteers to help passersby understand what the event is and what they can participate in. So obviously having, if you're expecting a heavy foot traffic, a huge number of attendees, having enough volunteers will be important. Having more than volunteers is way better than having less. So that's something that you should also consider.
All right, now we're going to move on to the when to do all the things need to happen. This is your event and you can set your own timeline. That being said, we strongly advise that you make a plan and delegate tasks. It helps everyone helping you to be engaged and empowered to contribute competently. Plus, most people don't like to have a ton of last minute prep stress that piles up, especially if you tend to have a busier April plan. The more you can do ahead of time for each event, the better. For determining the details that need to be planned, my personal strategy is to walk through every detail in my head and ask myself lots of questions about how things will get done. When I arrive on site, what has to get it set up? Do I need to take an inventory of supplies, a rough timeline of what needs to get set up first, tables and chairs and tablecloths, and then educational materials? Do I know where it's getting set up? It would be helpful to have an event diagram ahead of time for sure. I can't set up all this on my own. What parts can I assign to somebody else that's volunteering? How will I welcome the volunteers? What do they need to know that day versus what can I communicate in advance? Do volunteers need to wear something specific to be identifiable? Am I providing t-shirts? Am I asking people to try to wear red? How will EV owners know where to park their vehicles? Am I assigning spots or will it flow based on arrival time? Should I chalk? Should I do chalk or flower lines on the ground to designate parking? Will I have someone to help direct setup traffic? How will we make sure pedestrians stay safe around the ride and drive entrance or exit? How will drivers and dealers know the route? Um, your event page through the DEEM website is one of your best tool to get info to attendees and also volunteers. That was a pretty long list of things that I just read there. And if that's your internal monologue, you can imagine what other people need to know ahead of time as well. So just make sure that you build out your event description and offer as many details as possible to help event guests understand what the event will include and how they can best anticipate um, how they can best participate within the experience. To be determined and coming soon language is often a turnoff. Encourage RSVPs and offer communication through the website for event attendees and your event volunteers. Um, each event also has an option to order an event kit, which are packets of educational materials and event resources. They are a collaboration between campaign sponsors and national partners and are offered to events that fall within the official campaign dates for free. So this year's dates, event kit orders are already open and can be submitted once your DEEM event is registered and approved. There are some guidelines for event kit ordering in that your event must take place in April, it must be in person, and it must be in the United States. And I believe we have already passed the deadline for ordering event kits because that looks like it was maybe yesterday. I do encourage you, if you have scheduled your event and not ordered an event kit, to go and double check that though, if you're interested in that. There can be some really great information in there though. A few other dates that I just want to put on your radar as we're going through this. The last date for full info required to submit or create an event is Tuesday, the 25th of March. On the 26th of March, any event that is pending will disappear from the event map. So heads up about that. First day of events, of course, Tuesday, April 1st. The actual Earth Day itself is Tuesday, April 22nd. And the last day of events is going to be Wednesday, April 30th. Now, events can be scheduled outside of the month of April and will show up on the map, but they will not show up as official DEEM events. So any event scheduled between, I believe, January and May will show up on the DEEM map. Anything outside that window will show up on the completely different NDEEM map.
Awesome. And lastly, is the why does your event matter? Obviously, your event matters for a lot of reasons. First is community engagement. The events that you guys are planning to do offered within your community, contributes to engagement and connection. So events like that are opportunities for neighbors to meet and, get to know each other, for businesses or organizations as well to connect with the community and also do networking, and also for people just to, feel feel part of something bigger. And obviously, very important, EV awareness and education. I think that's one of the main goals of why we're doing this type of event, as for us to bring awareness and education around electrification transportation. And last is safe space, and it is doing so by creating, a safe space for people to learn, ask questions, and exploring something that may be very new to them, because some attendees might be very new with the space. So having them feel comfortable within that location or safe space is very important. And then knowledgeable volunteers. This I think is very important when doing an event, because the knowledgeable volunteers that will, typically be part of your event plays a big role in supporting those efforts. Obviously, a knowledgeable volunteers could either be an EV enthusiast, an EV owner, an EV drivers that, has the first-hand experience or very knowledgeable when it comes to EV space. Because when you have this type of volunteers, they will again play a big role of your event in terms of explaining or bringing awareness and education towards EV or electrification transportation. And again, next is the collective impact, collective impact, just like, your event allows your community to be a part of something bigger. Your event is also a part of something bigger because the collective impact of all of these events, individual events, that makes up the DEEM campaign is impressive. It helps to show how EV awareness and EV adoption is growing as well, because there's a lot of events happening nationwide for the DEEM campaign. And lastly, fun. Like, I know planning an event might be stressful for others, but obviously let's not forget to make sure that it's not only fun for attendees, but also fun for the team, whoever, planning the event is. So
Okay, some things to consider if you're hosting a ride and drive. Finding EVs for your event. You can join a local electric vehicle association chapter connect with local EV owners who may be interested in volunteering to showcase their vehicle at your event. You can check online forums such as those for the Nissan Leaf and Rivians and Teslas. Use your event webpage to invite EV owners to volunteer along with their EVs at the event. There are also many Facebook groups for electric vehicle owners in different cities. For example, there is a Seattle Nissan Leaf owners group. Driving route. A good route is designed to keep pedestrians and moving vehicles separated to the maximum extent possible. Use cones or other barriers. Create a test drive route on surrounding streets that is 1.5 to 2 miles, or roughly takes 15-20 minutes to complete. One thing you do want to keep in mind there as well is that if you have people waiting to test drive the vehicles, be mindful of how long you're asking them to wait while others are taking test drives. When making your route, aim for all right-hand turns. This reduces wait time for signals and is also safer with more protected turns. Avoid school zones and areas with heavy pedestrian or cyclist traffic. Look for a stretch with plenty of room to legally accelerate. I don't know if anyone here has ever really punched that accelerator on an EV, but can get away from you a little quick as well as being quite enjoyable. Also try to include a few twists and road curves. If you live in a grid city like Phoenix, this might be really hard. I have no understanding of what that's like in Phoenix, so apologies. And also look for a good place to complete a stop and start. Event organizers are responsible for obtaining permits, road closures, or anything else required by local, state, and federal agencies for the purpose of conducting test drives or rides. You should aim to have event staff posted within the area where the test drive cars are moving to manage safety of pedestrians and vehicles. You should also have a staffer posted at any point where a pedestrian walkway crosses a vehicle passage. Anyone posted at these crossings should be highly visible as drivers will be distracted by the test drive. We highly recommend that staff and volunteers are clearly visible in case of an emergency. One thing that you can give them are those safety vests. We often have those at some of our events for anyone who is in the midst of vehicle traffic. In terms of safety, make sure you're using signage such as do not cross tape or traffic cones to indicate pedestrian only zones where no moving vehicles are allowed, and a pedestrian crossing zones through the areas with moving vehicles if you have that set up. Insurance and liability. I know we have some curiosities about this, so we'll do our best to answer what we can. Dealers tend to carry insurance, and they are truly the best for conducting your test drives. EV owners can also be good for conducting test drives, but they should be individually responsible for ensuring that they have insurance to be protected. If volunteers want to offer their vehicle for test drives or rides, it is best to advise them of the following information. It is your decision what you want to let guests do with your vehicle. Look at it, sit in it, ride in it, or drive it. If you'd like to specify any rules or limits, you might want to put a note on the car indicating so. For example, please feel free to sit in any seat except for the driver's seat. Thank you. The more you let test drivers do, the more likely they are to be enthusiastic, but it's important to balance that with your comfort level for having others in your car. Check your insurance policy beforehand, or check with your agent to inquire about coverage when someone else is driving your car. You can probably let others drive the car for quick trips, but check first, as a few policies will not cover even that. And also please note that you cannot accept money for rides or drives, as that would count as commercial use. More importantly, have an event-wide process for registering and providing a valid driver's license from anyone wishing to drive. Identify registered riders, drivers with wristbands, or some other system that clearly indicates that they have been vetted and is not transferable. At our events, we have a QR code waiver that everyone is required to fill out on their phones. They show that to the people managing the ride and drive after they've filled it out, and they get a bracelet around their wrist indicating that they're good to go. We typically try to funnel people to one area in order to do that. That's just the process that works best for us.
Awesome. And then if you're thinking of doing an EV showcase instead of an EV ride and drive, here are some few things that you need to consider. Obviously, you'll want to ensure there's enough space for each vehicle to be shown off. This means, like having buffers for walking around vehicles and opening doors. Because, a lot of people would want to see what's the inside of the EV. You want to be able for people to get in and open the doors, specifically the front and the trunk, because one of the highlights of an EV is their front. So having that enough space to do all of those things will be very important. And then also identifying vehicles and then providing information about that vehicles. So you want to have an easily viewable information about them, about the EVs. You can use the DEEM resources templates that we have that has like label that shows the vehicle make and model and the number of like miles the owner has driven. Or also you can allow the EV owners to create the individualized signs. You can either use just a regular flyer, for example. You can use a window clings that you can stick on the cars. Or if not, you can just have the EV owners talk about the details about the EVs, but obviously having those materials easily handed to the attendants will be a lot easier instead of having the owners talk about the same thing every 1 minute or every 30 seconds. Um, and then also it's also a good idea to ensure EV owners for their showcase vehicles are easily identified. So you can have them have name tags, lanyards, or t-shirts. If you guys have your own uniform, you can share your uniform with them as well, so it's easily identified. Oh, it's the EV owners as part of the event. I can obviously ask questions for them, and then obviously you might also want to consider if it's possible to conduct an EV a charging demonstration because I know a lot of people might have questions around that. I know some people that may be new to the industry or the space will have a bunch of questions about EV charging. So what you can do is, if possible, you can do you can showcase adapters or EV charging itself. You can also work with local charging companies or utilities or electricians to be at your event or provide resources and talk through how EV charging works and what is it. And then if, for example, your location may even have on-site chargers that is near enough for a walking distance, you can have your folks give tours to point out how the chargers work and talk about charging etiquette and so on. If those things are not possible, obviously you can just do an EV 101, an EV charging 101 flyers, or you can also just play a demo on a TV, on an iPad, or a TV that also helps. That way people could just go watch it and still be informed on how EV charging works.
Now, a few other things to think about. And finally, promoting your event. We do have an upcoming webinar on marketing a DEEM event. It's an introductory webinar. It will be tomorrow, Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And then we have another marketing a DEEM event also on Wednesday, March 19th at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. We always encourage you to connect with local clubs and chapters, social groups. These may be EV-related groups and can be a good source of volunteers or additional outlets for marketing your event, or they may not be EV-related groups, but can still be a good audience to promote your event within. Engage the community for sponsorships and donations. That can be as small an ask as, hey, would you provide some snacks or lunch for the event volunteers, or a larger or financial ask of, we'd love to have you on board as a sponsor for $300. Here are the benefits we can offer to you as a sponsor. Being a sponsor is a promotion opportunity for local businesses, don't sell yourself short on how you can help your event benefit from that exposure, either through funds or in-kind donations that support your event. You can utilize your event webpage as a way to recognize sponsors in terms of like putting their logo on your event page. That can go a long way to help as well. You can also include sponsor mentions in emails that you send out to event attendees. One last and very important aspect of planning your event is to ensure you've established a way to collect some relatively easy data that will need to be included in your event report. The info you'll be asked to submit for your event report includes a recording of the event, if it was an online event, total number of people exposed to your event, such as attendees and people who just saw that enthusiastic EV owners were celebrating Drive Electric Earth Month, number of plug-in vehicles at the event, either on display or giving test rides and drives, number of test rides or drives given, if applicable, name and title of any public officials who attended, number of conversations about EVs, and please take some photographs and video at your event. Try to capture smiling faces, people behind the wheel of an EV, or EVs next to an iconic landmark.
Yep. And then one last reminder and review as we wrap up this webinar. So resources and tools aside from the team of people that you'll recruit to help you put up on the event. You'll also receive a support because you're part of the network of events that makes up the DEEM campaign. And that means access to a variety of resources and tools. I know we've mentioned a lot of support that will be given to you guys and the event organizers. So obviously one is the website or the DEEM website and the ability to create a web page for your event. So once you register the event, obviously you'll have your own registration page on the website. Webinars, this type of webinars as well is one of the resources and tools that we have. And then we still have some upcoming webinars that Jenny just mentioned, so feel free to register on that one. And then printed EV education resources. We have a lot of printed materials that we could share with you all to go through and then also distribute to your attendees. Obviously, marketing resources are available as well. National partner supports are also available. And then network of the drivers and EV drivers and advocates we have. They are available to be connected with you guys that are also putting up on events across the country. And obviously, funding opportunities or special funding opportunities are also available. Just feel free to reach out to us again at support at driveelectricearthmonth.org if you have any questions in terms of resources and tools. If you have anything specifically that you need, again, reach out to us via the support at driveelectricearthmonth.org. So. And then next slide or the last slide is the questions. If you guys have any questions, any question is acceptable. So please let us know or drop that in the chat box or the Q&A box as well.
So it looks like we do have one from Zan. Thank you. Finding out how much the SCE grant would be very helpful. Zan, I have to be perfectly honest with you. I do not know what that is.
No, but that's something that we could obviously have you reach out to support at driveelectricearthmonth.org. I know we've already responded regarding your first question, but yeah, again, feel free to reach out about those details on the email support at driveelectricearthmonth.org, and we'll try our best to obviously answer that question. Awesome. And then,
Awesome.
oh yeah, I think Zan already reached out, so awesome.
Very cool. Do we have any others?
Yeah, any questions are acceptable, guys, so feel free to drop that. But yeah, again, if you guys want to have any support, again, I think I've said this a million times already. Reach out to us via email if you have any questions. But yeah, if again, just reach out to us if you have any.
Just echo that, but thank you, Terry. I appreciate that note as well. And again, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Zan. We appreciate that. But yeah, to Zan's point, there really is no wrong way to do this. April tends to get busy for our organization, but I think we kind of like that more than anything. So I hope everyone has a successful DEEM campaign, and I can't wait to hear and see everyone's events and the event reports. But
Awesome.
outside of that, I think that wraps us up for today. Thank you for your time and joining us. And as Carlos mentioned, if there's anything else we could do, please feel free to reach out.